I want to bring it back a little bit to the regulatory convergence because you say hemp and non-hemp, and it feels a little bit like stuck, right? We're stuck with these two different paradigms that are running in parallel. And in my world, I think a lot about the consumer who we've already identified, really starting to see this as just where can I get the cannabinoids that I want? And we work with a lot of beverage brands who, as a product category, have been the most fluid across the two different regulatory structures. You see a lot of brands operating in both. And then we have the MSOs jumping in, like I said, doing their thing. And so as we think about the future, is it even a potential that we see regulatory convergence? Like, I have my thoughts, and I'm queuing this up for you, Mark. And I think something that came up recently really makes it poignant for us here in California is there's this, what's it called? The Rethink Cannabis movement, where it's like redefine a new voter initiative for the state of California to replace Prop 64. Now, if we
Oh,
could
Cannabis
get it,
Aligned. That's what it's called.
Cannabis Aligned, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if we could get past the whole, like, how can we raise $40 million or whatever it takes to push something like this across, how would we actually do it? Would we get hemp and cannabis operators in the same room? Would we start looking at it as regulatory convergence? Could we set aside all the different capitalistic components to really think about what is the vision of the future? Like, how do we get cannabis or cannabis in all its forms to people? I was saying this to Nina Parks on LinkedIn. I really want to ensure that we have all these voices equally represented when we have this conversation. It always comes down to how do we make decisions with all those diverse perspectives? Because as we've seen in California, you can have some very powerful voices representing just a few operators.
Yeah. I'm going to sound like an interview here. It's a great question. And I think that it's a lot harder than people make it out to be. One of my beefs with the rhetoric from the hemp side of things is the argument that let's just all work together to figure this out. That's easy to say, but it's rarely explained or articulated what that means, because a lot of the result is only really going to favor the hemp side of things. And how do you reconcile? And I don't mean this in an antagonistic way, I mean this in an academic and trying to think this through. What does that really look like? Because if the point of hemp, that might be the wrong way to put it, but the point of hemp is that it's a federally legal product, and with everything that's wrapped up in that. But then you've got non-hemp that by state law has to go through the full track and trace system and is subject to 280E, and it can only be sold in licensed dispensaries. I don't know how you can feasibly reconcile those two.
We have
And
examples, right? Or at least examples trying. And Minnesota's kind of the hallmark of the bifurcated market. But one way to consider is like you have the cannabis marketplace where people are shopping for cannabis and cannabis alternatives. And then you have the low dose kind of hemp products that are in the mainstream marketplace where they might be perceived as alternatives to other products. And I'm going to always speak from the
yeah,
beverage perspective, right? Like you go into a
well,
bar,
yeah,
you don't want an alcoholic drink, but you'll take a hemp beverage drink and it's low dose. It's
yeah,
not the 100 milligram drink that you'll find in a dispensary, but it creates an opportunity for general access and normalization of cannabinoids to consumers. And
yeah.
that could theoretically increase the whole pie for everyone.